This word safety is very misunderstood. Safety doesn't necessarily mean that there's no direct threat to my life right now. Safety means that I can be myself around everyone. Safety means that I can be at ease. Safety means that I don't have to worry about things or others or food. That's what it means to feel safe. And safety also means that I can feel fear and I still feel safe, and that I don't need to cope with something because that emotion of fear makes me very uncomfortable. If you're always berating yourself for what you did, what you didn't do, if you're always upset at yourself for what you said and what you didn't say, if you always feel like you're not enough, if every morning you look at yourself in the mirror and you say something negative about yourself, well, that triggers your nervous system. Well, hello, and thank you so much for joining me. And you've made the time to be here today. So before we get started, we're going to wait for a few more people to join, and you're going to see that I'm going to put a poll up here in just a moment. And I'm curious, I want to know why you're here. Why are you here today? And I'm just looking at some of the faces here, and this is really awesome because I see a Susan Gregory here in the room, which is just so beautiful because I think it's been like decades. And I see a Shaman here, which I'm super excited to connect with you this afternoon. Martine is here. Look at all of these beautiful faces. So thank you so much again for joining. And Lucy, love to see Lucy. Is that Julie there? Oh, that's so great. All right, so Michelle's going to put up a poll, and in just a moment, I'm going to start to talk to you about the nervous system. And why I love this conversation is because at the end of these 9 days, you're going to learn something that you're going to be wondering why. This is only the first time you're ever hearing this. And maybe you've heard some buzzwork about the nervous system. I know right now we're doing a lot of emotional regulation. People are using hypnotherapy, but I'm super curious. Where do you stand in this space? Where do you stand in this space? In just a moment, I'm going to get a sense of where you're also starting your journey from. And so if you take a moment here to just answer the questions, because if I'm being completely honest, I don't actually have these 9 days prepared. You know why? Because I want to share with you exactly what you need to hear during these 9 days. And this is all going to depend on how you're answering these poll questions. I've got so much information to share with you. And so instead of choosing what I want to talk about, what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to share with you what you want to talk about, what you need to have support around. And you're going to hear me talk about the nervous system today. I'm not going to get too geeky, well, a little bit, I'll be honest, but also I want you to know that I'll be building up on this conversation throughout the week. Today, we're going to talk about the nervous system. I'm going to explain to you why your body has been resisting you. By the end of today, you're going to understand why you self-sabotage with food or alcohol or cannabis or even shopping. Why do you need to turn to a dopamine reward or instant pleasure anytime you are feeling a dysregulated emotion? And more importantly, how it's because of the nervous system that you actually seek this pleasure. It's because of the nervous system that you have cravings for sugary things or for salty things. It's why you can't stop nighttime snacking. And it's why discipline only takes you so far. And I think you know by now that willpower is pretty good for about a week or two. I mean, we are in March right now, and you've probably started off the year, probably with some sort of New Year's resolution. And that probably lasted up until what, week 2, week 3? And I bet even before January 1st, you wanted to get everything out of your system because you knew you were going to get started and you're going to commit to this big, big thing. You probably had one of those last supper mentalities where, all right, I'm going to jump in. It's okay, January 1st, I'm never doing this again. I'm never eating carbs again. I'm never having sugar again. I'm never doing that again. I'm going to be Sherry 2.0 in January 2025. And so I'm going to get everything out of my system. I'm sure you've already experienced that. Why? Because we all experience that. And you're going to understand why by the end of these 9 days, how that is a nervous system problem. And tomorrow, I'm going to be talking to you about 2 vital hormones that basically are what are behind the cravings, what is also behind slowing down your metabolism, and why if we don't regulate these hormones, the body is always going to want to seek out survival. And survival really means that you can live a long period of time without essentially food, that you can actually use your body's energy reserves to be able to live as long as you possibly can in case there is a famine. And that's why our body is so resistant. When you get your body through activating your nervous system to believe that it's in danger, that there is a threat to its survival, well, So of course, it's going to do everything it possibly can to survive, which means he or she who has the most stored body fat is who survives the longest. And so you're fighting it with exercise, and you're fighting it with strict nutrition and diet, and you've hired the best trainer on the planet, and you've started to the 75 hard maybe for the fourth time. But why is it that you find yourself exactly in the same place? Well, if your body is geared for survival, in other words, you've triggered your nervous system to make you feel unsafe, which you'll learn all about through our time together this week and next week, then no matter what your efforts are, you're going to find yourself self-sabotaging. And so we're going to talk about these two hormones. And if you learn how to control these two hormones, which actually is really, really simple, then within 1 month, the cravings stop, the self-sabotaging behavior stops, and your body naturally is going to want to release any stored energy it doesn't need. And here's the best part. You don't have to fight the cravings. It's not like, oh, I really want sugar, but like, no, Sherry, come on, just go drink water instead. It's not that. It's that there are no cravings. It's that there will be nothing to fight. And so this, again, is going to go against everything you've ever heard about diet, about nutrition, about weight loss, about calories. I mean, raise your hand if you've never tried the calorie deficit diet. And raise your hand also if you've never tried to diet. If you're in this room here today and you're here curious about information, have you tried dieting? And if you've tried dieting, which diets have you tried? And I'll give you guys a couple more minutes for those of you just joining. There is a poll that I would like for you to answer, and it's really going to help me create the content that you want to actually be here for. You took time out of your day to be here, or maybe you're here watching the replay. So I want to make this count for you. I want to make this useful. Sharon says, my current relationship with food is mostly stable. I don't purge, nor has that been my history. I do occasionally desire something sweet. Yesterday, I found that with a drink of coffee with milk, I was satisfied and didn't need anything else. Thank you for sharing, Sharon. And milk does have sugar, which I know you are aware of. I know Sharon, by the way, which is why I'm sharing that response with her. Shamarish made it to February 15th. Okay, so thanks again for sharing the poll questions. And it seems like where most of us stand right now, it seems like you feel out of control around food, and you can't always tell when you're hungry. You notice also that you soothe when you're bored or you're stressed or you have emotions. So a lot of you are experiencing emotional eating. I am so happy you are here. And oftentimes you can eat to the point where you're full, maybe uncomfortably full, and it's only then when you'll likely stop. And then I also see that a lot of us have the tendency to do really well during the week when you're on a plan, and then also on weekends or maybe in evenings, you find yourself rewarding yourself essentially for the good work that you've done, or maybe even rewarding yourself for a long day. So thanks again for sharing that. And I really want this to be engaging as possible. I mean, it gets kind of boring when you're on here in a masterclass and you're just listening. And one thing I'll also share with you is if you don't have a journal, go ahead and grab one. I want you to take notes. And if you don't have the workbook, then we're going to also put it here in the chat so you can grab it and follow along. The workbook is an opportunity for you to make notes, not take notes. And there's a difference between taking notes and making notes. As I share things, I don't want you just to write down what you're hearing because, oh, she just said this. I want you to actually write down notes based on what you're hearing that will be applicable to you. And that's the difference between taking notes and making notes. I want you to actually make notes for yourself. So by the end of this time together and you reflect back on these notes that you've made for yourself, you know exactly which action steps to take, okay? So today we're gonna dive into the nervous system. You're gonna understand why your body's been locking you into resisting some of the efforts that you've been doing, like you've shared already in the poll, why you are always seeking some sort of reward when you're feeling a certain emotion, and also why is it that you do really well during the week and then find yourself sabotaging on the weekend. Tomorrow, we're going to talk about hormones. That's going to be day 2. We'll talk about the 2 vital hormones that keep you stuck in this cycle, which are very much related to the nervous system. On day 3, we're going to talk about metabolism, and we're going to bust a whole bunch of myths that you've heard about metabolism. We're going to also talk about how to speed up your metabolism and how, again, it's very much related to your nervous system. Day 4, we're going to get into gut health and what what has to happen to improve and fortify that connection between the brain and the gut so that there is communication, so that the brain and the gut through the vagus nerve are on the same page. What does that mean? That means I'm trying to release weight and I'm exercising, I'm doing all these things, yet why is my gut craving sugar? Why is it making me overeat? Why is there a disalignment? We're going to talk all about that on day 4. And then we're going to do a session together on day 5 to bring it all in one place where you're going to have a massive breakthrough. That is day 5. Day 5 is massive breakthrough day. Okay. We're going to be building all the way up to day 5. Day 6 and 7, that's this weekend. You're going to meet with me. We're going to go through Q&A. This is going to be a great opportunity now for you to look through all these notes that you've made throughout the week, and you're going to be able to really get some spotlight coaching on some of the things that you're still maybe wanting some more support around. And then on Monday, we're going to do an inner child healing. And on Tuesday, we're also going to do a breathing technique. So I want to teach you all of these different methods. And I'll also tell you that there are so many people in the room who are already in the Make Peace with Food program. There are people in this room who've joined the masterclass who are already in the Make Peace with Food program. Why? Because this masterclass is an immersive opportunity for you to really learn. And I don't know how to teach the same thing twice. So I did a masterclass, rapid release, in January, and I can't even remember what I taught. And so this is a live experience. And again, very much based on how you're responding today, how you're going to be engaging throughout the week, and then all the messages that you're going to be sending me. All right. So who's excited about this? Who's excited about this? And I know you're all, oh, yay, good. Oh, wonderful. I do see some raised hands. That's really great. And now I want you to just answer that second question about the nervous system. If you're following some of my content, if you've been following the Make Peace with Food podcast, you may have heard me talk about the nervous system, but just as a temperature check, where do you stand right now in terms of what you know about the nervous system and what you are here for today specifically? Why are you here today? What would you like to get out of today's conversation, knowing that we're about to talk about the nervous system and why you're feeling maybe stuck in some unwanted behavior? What is it that you'd like out of today's time together? So go ahead and place in the chat. Georgia, how to calm my nervous system and turning to food. Awesome. Awesome. Good. Good. We're definitely going to make sure you walk away with that today. What else? And as things come up, go ahead and share. I'm addicted to sugar. Julie, I can relate. I can relate. That used to be the old me. Calvin, step forward, health and wellness. Awesome. I love it. Megan, I feel like I know so much about the nervous system, but have not been able to get unstuck in old emotions. Yeah. And thank you so much for sharing that. And along those lines, here's something I want to offer for every single person who's joining with me. Please do your best to avoid saying or thinking the words, oh, I know that. Oh, I've heard this before. I know exactly what she's talking about. Oh, I know. Oh, I know this already. I know it all. I already know it all. And I want you to be here to receive, because we know the things, and nobody needs to be here today for me to tell them that, hey, whole food serves us more and processed foods don't serve us as much. You don't need anyone to tell you this. You know that already. Yet why are you still consuming those foods that you know that don't serve you at the end of the day? It's not because you don't know it. It's because there's a disconnect between what you know and what you're doing. And that again is a cause of where your nervous system is locked, whether that's in protection mode, which I'm going to be talking about today, or it's in safety mode. And so remember, if your nervous system is in protection mode and you're in survival mode, it's going to do everything it possibly can to make you survive, which means it's going to up the cravings, which means it's going to get you to overeat, which means it's going to get you to sabotage all your efforts, especially if you're trying to release weight. Because here's the thing, when your nervous system is in protection mode, which means it favors fat storage, and you're trying to release body fat by going into calorie deficit or cutting out your carbs or over exercising, guess what it's going to do? It's going to fight you. And how's it going to fight you? You're going to start to see behavior that's out of control. Do you ever notice when you're binge eating or emotional eating, it's almost like you go unconscious, and then only after the episode is done do you actually ask yourself, like, oh my God, what did I just do? Like, why did I do that? Why did I do what happened? It's like you blacked out. And that's because when you are in protection mode, you don't have what we call second order thinking. You only have something called first order thinking, which is I I need this right now. I need reward right now. You don't think about the consequence of what's going to follow. If I eat this, then this is going to happen. Then it's going to sabotage my results. Then I'm not going to sleep all night. Then I'm going to have heartburn. Then I'm going to have gut issues, and so on and so forth. All that is called second order thinking. But when you're in protection mode, when your nervous system is locked into that state, you only have first order thinking, which is why it's like you kind of black out, right? And again, I'm going to be saying eating, and I'm going to be using food as a coping mechanism. But I'll tell you right now, I've been in this space for 25 years. I've worked with thousands of people, and it's never just food. Most oftentimes there is a secondary behavior. This could be alcohol. This could be cannabis. This could be over shopping. This could be sex. And so if you're here with me, open and ready to be in your truth, so you can really get to what's behind your unwanted eating behavior or unwanted drinking behavior or any other behavior that's really sabotaging your life, then you're going to start to move towards healing. But it has to start with that awareness, and it has to start with, all right, this is really getting in my way. This is a thing that's actually keeping me away from my health goal. This is the thing that's keeping me away from my relationship or having a beautiful union with my partner. This is the thing that's keeping me away from my financial goals. This is the thing that's keeping me away from my projects or my passions or launching that business I've always wanted to do. But if there's something standing in the way right now of where it is that you want to go, and you allow yourself, you give yourself full permission without judgment to sit in your truth and uncover what it is, you're on your way to healing. And it happens faster than you think. And again, I've worked with thousands of people, and I'll tell you this, I never take credit for anybody's transformation. I will, though, say that I share the tools, and it's up to you to use them. And if you use these tools within the first 30 days of using these tools, there's a massive shift. And here's what the massive shift looks like. If right now you're experiencing nighttime snacking and it's happening every single day, it's not going to magically just abolish overnight. But what it is going to look like is a lot more control, a lot more awareness, and it's going to move from being 7 days a week to maybe 4 days a week to twice a week to once every couple of weeks. And that's transformation. And so what's different about this process compared to, let's say, working out at the gym or seeing actual weight loss is that you can't measure it in a tangible way. The only way that you can see a shift in your nervous system is through your behavior and through your actions. And tomorrow we're going to talk about scarcity mindset and abundance mindset. But if you're always focused on what you're not doing yet, what you have to do more of, how it's still not perfect or good enough, then you're going to be missing the transformation, because every single day you're going to be seeing an improvement. You're going to be seeing yourself moving towards where it is that you want to go. So just going to read a couple more comments, and then we're going to dive right into it. I will be leaving about 10 minutes or so for questions at the end, and I will honor your time. We're going to be stopping at 1 p.m. Eastern today. I will be asking you to answer another poll question towards the end. I just want to see what you've received from this information. Again, I'm planning the curriculum over these 9 days based on what it is that you're wanting to be here for in a way that I can serve you most. So Georgia says she wants to feel safe in her body. Awesome. Yes, tomorrow's gonna be so important for you. Georgia, hope to see you there. Lucy, break through the binge cycle. Janet, need for repetition of concepts. Yeah, I love that you say that, Janet, because it's repetition that creates mastery. Deborah, confused about nutrition. So much info out there. Oh my goodness, Deborah, that was my story. And Martine, to refresh the theory you have taught me. Awesome. Well, I'm so happy you are all here. So let's dive into it. And I think we have to start off maybe with a super quick intro around who I am. For those of you that don't know who I am, my name is Shaban. I'm based out of Montreal, Canada. I'm a certified athletic therapist. I'm an osteopath. I'm a super big science nerd. And I really got into this space. Actually, I stumbled it by accident because I was on a journey really to overcome a major back injury. So for those of you who don't know my story, when I was a teenager, I was struck by a car and I damaged my spine. And at that time, I was super into sports. I was a child athlete. That's really how I always viewed myself. That was my identity. And for many years after I had back surgery to help me recover from the near paralysis experience that I had, I was told I wasn't allowed to play sports. And so I listened to this advice for many, many years until my early 20s, where I woke up one day realizing, oh my God, like, who have I become? This is not who I am. And I decided that day that I was going to go into a gym and sign up. And just let me tell you, at that time, I was trying to get through every single day, relying on pain medication. I was always in chronic pain. My whole world revolved around my back, how long I would sit for, a party, or if I was sitting in a car, or if I would even go to a social event, everything was really always around the state of my back. And for sure, exercise fitness was completely out of the question at that time. But I had realized I was actually immersing myself in this social environment that I couldn't resonate with. So it was, of course, me realizing I'm doing all of these things that I never really would have expected myself to do at that age, and in a party crowd, and just doing all the things that really were absolutely the opposite of what I saw as an athletic identity. And so I decided to sign up at a gym one day. I showed up every single day consistently, and just working with my own chronic pain, I was able to, over a span of months, get off my pain medication. And that's when I decided to drop out of my master's degree in chemistry at McGill at that time and go into exercise science and become a certified athletic therapist. Because if I had discovered how to overcome back pain, and I was able to now really get into a place where I was doing the things that doctors said I was never going to do, then I wanted to help other people do that too. And that's where the journey started. So I was studying exercise science. I was taking every single certification I possibly could on fitness, on nutrition, on prenatal, postnatal, CrossFit, TRX, kettlebell, you name it, I did it. Then I started to work with people, and I started to train people in their homes. I was doing boot camps in the park, and all of this, again, super studying nutrition. And at that time, everybody was talking about this low calorie diet. And so I started doing this low calorie diet and counting calories, which was something I had never done before, right? I got into the health and fitness space because I had to overcome a major back pain, and I was going down this path of hanging out with the wrong people, doing the wrong things. And diet just wasn't a goal for me at that time. But what I wanted to do is I wanted to know the information. I wanted to know the knowledge so that I could help other people do it too. So I started counting calories. And then after that, I heard that, fats are really bad and we should all go on a low fat diet. And so I was like, all right, cool. Yeah, there's science there to support that. So I started a low fat diet. And then after that, I heard about this guy named Atkins, who was talking about how carbohydrates are very bad, and they're the cause of all these diseases and cancer and heart disease. And so, okay, I then started to eat more fats and started to eat meat. And then I took out carbs. And then I opened a CrossFit gym. And then everybody was talking about eating like a caveman. And so I became paleo. And of course, the science was there. And then after that, it was the zone diet. And of course, the science was there. And then it was keto. And then I was even vegan for a while. And so as you can see, moving and jumping from one extreme diet to the next, I became very, very confused. And again, the most confusing part was there was science behind all of it. Behind every single diet, there was the science to back it up. And so what I actually found myself doing is changing my food rules really rapidly. Every single week, it was a different rule. And I would meal prep, and I would get really, really clean and organized and very restrictive during the week. And I thought I was being super disciplined. And then on Friday night, of course, I would have a cheat meal, because that's what you do in the health and fitness space. You're really clean all week, and then you allow yourself a cheat meal. Well, what happened was that cheat meal became a cheat evening, and then it became a cheat weekend. And over the span of months, I realized that I had developed a disordered relationship with food, because come Monday, I was fasting. I was using fasting, and sometimes up to 72 hours of fasting to make up for the behavior that I had just gone through throughout the weekend, to make up for all the things that I ate. And I was stuck in this cycle until one day I realized, oh my goodness, I actually have no control. I have no control over this episode where I sat down and I would feel super out of control around the things that I was consuming. Again, it all started in the name of health and fitness. And what I realized had happened was I had developed a secret eating disorder. And the other thing that it led me to become aware of is how every single one of my clients, who I would give an awesome meal plan to, by the way, which I thought was super balanced, and I would calculate their macros and give them recipes, and they would follow it for a good 4 to 6 weeks, depending on the plan, and they would do really well in the short term. But what I realized was the moment that they came off this plan, they would gain all that weight back quickly. And so I started to deep dive into it. At that point, I had become a DO. I had become a doctor in osteopathy. I had learned a lot about the nervous system, and I knew something was wrong. And what was wrong was I had developed a fear of food. Food for me became a very fearful experience. There were a lot of rules. There was a lot of feeling good when I ate certain foods and then feeling really bad when I ate other foods. And I had trained my nervous system. I had taught myself that I had value and I was good if I ate this way. Except here was the problem. That kept changing every single week, because when it was keto, it looked one way. And then when it was paleo, it looked another way. And then when I was vegan, it looked another way. And so I didn't know what to eat anymore. I just constantly felt confused around food. So when I would eat, there was a lot of fear around perfection. And then when I would eat the things that weren't on the good list that week, there was a lot of fear and shame and guilt and frustration and anger around what I ate. And that's what we train our nervous system to do. And what I had realized was I had really triggered myself into what is called protection mode. Now, the type of nervous system that we're going to be talking about throughout the rest of the week is called the autonomic nervous system. And the autonomic nervous system is that part of the nervous system that is responsible for thoughts, emotions. It is responsible for hormones. It's responsible for digestion. It's responsible for heart rate. It's responsible for breathing. It's responsible essentially for all the things that you don't have to think about. It's all the things that you don't have to voluntarily command it to do. The central nervous system is under our control. That's when we say, oh, lift up your arms or blink your eyes or go for a run or anything where we actually have to command our body to do. That's the central nervous system. But the autonomic nervous system, that's the one that's running in the background. That's your unconscious mind. It's your unconscious pattern. It's what you teach it to do so that you don't have to keep teaching it anything new. And so think about the first time you started driving. And my daughter right now, she's driving and it's really cool. And I see my freedom very, very close. But she started driving and now I watch her in the car and there's a lot of energy that she puts around where to place her hands on the steering wheel and how to adjust her mirrors and her blind spot and looking in the mirror. There's so much information because it's not in her unconscious mind yet. It's still conscious. And the moment that we learn something and we don't have to think about it anymore, that becomes unconscious. And that's the thing with our eating behavior. Right now, if you're experiencing binge eating or emotional eating, or if you've associated stress with food or worry with food or feeling of not enoughness with food, or when you diet and you release some weight, you also reward yourself with food. If you've done any of these things, what you've also done is you've programmed your body, you've programmed your nervous system for that pattern. It's just a pattern. And that's the thing about the nervous system. It's made up of nerves and it's made up of electrical conduction. There's information that's being transferred from your brain to your body and from your body to your brain. It's just the program. And if you can see this running as a program, if you can see that you've actually taught yourself, you've trained yourself very, very well through countless repetition to associate certain actions with certain emotions, then what you can also do is actually unprogram that. Whatever you've programmed, you can delete. You can actually create a new program. But the only way that you can do that is by creating the awareness. You have to be able to see the program. You have to be able to see exactly what you've downloaded in your nervous system. This person creates this emotion, ooh, it's uncomfortable in the body. When I eat this, or when I smoke that, or when I drink this, that feels good. That feels relief. Now, repeat. And now you've programmed yourself. You've trained yourself for that pattern. Some of us call that an addiction, and I'm going to call it a nervous system pattern. And anything that you've learned, you can unlearn, but you have to see it play out like a movie. And that's exactly what I want to walk you through during these 9 days. And it's interesting because none of what we're going to be talking about is food, right? So I'm going to ask you right now, if you're here because you're hoping to learn more about which carbs are better or which fats are better, I'm going to tell you you're in the wrong room. But if you're here to learn, how can I really get to the root of why I'm doing the things that I'm doing? Then stick around, because this is going to be mind-blowing for you. Like I said, there are people inside my program who are here because the information, first of all, it never ends. There's always new stuff that I'm going to share with you. And it's so amazing to hear this on repeat, because as I hear this on repeat, I finally understand it. It's one thing to know something, but it's a completely different different thing to understand it and then have the wisdom to apply it. And that's why if we can get away from, I know that, I've heard this, oh yeah, nervous system. And there are many people also in this room who have a nutrition background, who are coaches, who are in the wellness space. And again, let me share with you a new perspective, because I've sat down with so many people in the health and fitness space to talk about the nervous system in this way, and it was brand new information. And so let's start to explore this together. And before I move on, just again, a quick temperature check. How is this resonating for you so far? How's this resonating for you so far? And even as I just shared my story, does that sound familiar? Does that sound familiar to you? Megan says, releasing nutritional struggles is my main goal. So many food issues stemming from appendicitis in Western medicine, dismissed probably overtraining last year from not great personal training that led to weight gain. Yeah. And Megan, training and excessive training and overtraining is very stressful on the body. That also triggers the nervous system to feel unsafe, right? Especially if it's coupled with the emotion of fear, especially if it's coupled with this sense of perfectionism or this forced outcome. I need to release weight. I'm so angry at myself. How did I get this way? And when you have those emotions while you're training, the body is experiencing something that it actually feels is very threatening. So Georgia says, totally resonate with this and the fitness side of it. Yeah. And a lot of health and fitness professionals get in this space. I work with a lot of people also who also do fitness competitions, right? And they have to go through extreme caloric deficits just to stand on stage for a couple of hours. And the amount of havoc that this creates on the nervous system and on metabolism and on hormones is immense. And they always do end up experiencing some sort of unwanted eating behavior. Thank you, Georgia, for sharing. Thank you so much for sharing and for participating. Okay, so let's talk about the nervous system a little bit more. So I'm going to call protection mode, okay, fight or flight. So you may have heard of sympathetic nervous state. You may have heard fight or flight, but you'll hear me always refer to it as protection mode, okay? Because there are so many things that happens in your body other than just your heart rate increasing or your breathing increases. There's so much more that happens, because what I also want to expand on throughout the week is what happens in terms of hormones, what happens in terms of thoughts, what happens in terms of actions. Because very soon you're going to learn that every single time you have a thought, this is going to create an emotion. You don't just have emotions without a thought. There's a certain thought that links an emotion. And depending on what your emotion is, you're going to then take the next action that's going to resonate with that emotion. So think about it. If you're feeling joy, right now it's spring and things are melting in Montreal and the sun is out and there's so much joy. If everybody's out walking, everybody's out on the patios, and you could see that this is just energy, and joy is a high vibration emotion. There's no good or bad emotions, by the way. And the same thing when you have a thought of fear or a thought of doubt or a thought of worry, the body starts to feel heavy. You actually feel that heaviness in the body. It's really hard to motivate yourself to go for a walk when you're in a lot of sadness, or you're in a lot of fear or worry or shame or guilt. And so you're going to start to break this down in a way where, again, you're going to understand how a thought is going to create chemistry in the body. And it's either going to trigger you to be in protection mode or in safety mode. So the autonomic nervous system, remember, that's the part of the nervous system that is not under our voluntary control. That's divided into two states. There's sympathetic nervous state, and then there's parasympathetic. Sympathetic nervous state is protection mode. It is the fight or flight. It's that nervous system state that gears in or gets triggered anytime you feel unsafe in your environment. And anytime that you feel unsafe in your environment and it lasts a long time, you're locked into this state. And if you are in the state for a long time, your body, like we were saying earlier, it begins to learn this. It just starts to become your normal. Waking up with thoughts of dread or fear or anger or sadness or depression or worry or doubt just becomes your normal. And in fact, your body actually starts to get addicted to these emotions. Why is that? It's because they're familiar. And so when we are triggered into protection mode, because the body has absolutely no idea that you're living in the modern world and that all of these stresses are actually stresses of the modern world, such as taxes, such as relationship problems, right? Such as finances, it still kicks in that reptilian brain that's going to be responsible for your survival. So back in the day when we were hunter-gatherers and there was an actual threat because something was going to eat us, or we were actually going to run out of food, we had the ability to withstand withstand famine. And so this is the part of the nervous system that gets triggered to help us store as much energy as possible in case we really do have to endure famine. And so what does that mean? That means that metabolism is going to slow down. So anytime you're in protection mode, anytime you trigger yourself into fight or flight or sympathetic nervous state, what you're actually doing, we're going to talk about the hormones tomorrow, but what you're actually doing is you are triggering your nervous system, your body, to favor fat storage. And that means metabolism has to slow down so that you don't waste energy, so that you can be more efficient with your energy, so that you can feel heavier and you can actually feel less motivated to use up energy. And that's why it's hard to get up and go for that walk when you're in those emotions, when you're in that nervous system state. It's hard to feel motivated. And so here you are thinking that you don't have discipline, that you're not motivated, that there's something wrong with you because you can't stick with it long enough, but that's actually not the case. You're just in protection mode. In fact, your body is perfectly healthy. It's doing exactly what it's supposed to do. It's designed to do that. It's designed to make sure that you conserve energy. And then the other thing it wants to do is, again, make sure that you have energy reserves. So it's going to get you to crave more food. Ever notice that you can eat and it feels like you're just this bottomless pit? You can just keep going. And we spoke about this earlier, when you feel out of control around food and you kind of go unconscious for a moment and you're just eating and eating. Yeah, that's the reptilian brain. That's the part of the brain that is not under your actual governing command. And so you notice you have more sugar cravings. You notice you're overeating. You notice you're mindlessly eating. You notice at the end of the day that you feel like you deserve a reward in front of the TV, watching your favorite Netflix shows and having your favorite snacks. And all of that is a sign that you're in protection mode. And so this is what happens in the body. Now, what happens in terms of your thoughts and your emotions are, think about this. When you're triggered into protection mode, meaning your body's feeling unsafe, where are your thoughts going to be? Well, your thoughts are going to be projected on worst case scenarios. If this happens, oh my God, what if that happens? Oh my God, what if I never that? What if I lose my job? What if I keep gaining weight? And so your body's always in the future or in the past, thinking about things that cause sadness or depression or regret or shame or blame. When you're in protection mode, your thoughts are projected in the future, trying to predict worst case scenarios so that you can prepare for them, of course, because if you can prepare for the worst situation, you're more likely to survive. Again, your body's actually perfectly healthy. The only problem is that you've been in this state for too long. And we're going to be talking about protection mode all week. And I also want to just plug in here real quick that it's not a bad thing. This is not a negative thing. For us to have fight or flight is an amazing way for us to survive. It's actually why we've survived. It's how you're able to have superhuman powers when you need to save your kid from a fire or you need to get out of an emergency situation. The issue, though, becomes when you've been in this state for too long. Everything is stressful. The kids are stressful. Work is stressful. Finance is stressful. The relationships are stressful. Where you have to live is stressful. Then you're watching the news all day and that's stressful. And then you're hating certain people because of certain things that you're watching on the news and that's stressful and everything is stressful. And that's the issue. And now couple that with your worry about your weight, your worry about your health, and now you're chronically stuck in protection mode. And so regardless of what your efforts are, it won't matter. It's like you're trying to mop the floor when really the issue is you have a leaky faucet. You can keep mopping the floor all you want. You're going to be mopping forever unless you fix that faucet. And that's where this work comes in, is learning how to shift your nervous system, which means I want you to make a deal with me moving forward. I want you to stop focusing on your weight. I want you to stop focusing on your health. And I want you actually to start focusing on your nervous system. Let this become your diet, because the more you worry about your weight, what's happening? The more you're worrying about food, what to eat and what not to eat, what's happening? Again, I shared with you earlier, the nervous system just stores information. Food is stressful. Food is dangerous. Oh, body. Oh, there's weight. There's a lot of health issues with my weight. And so all of those thoughts will end up getting linked together in a program in the nervous system to constantly trigger protection mode. Every single time you think about any of these topics, triggers your nervous system. And that's what feels unsafe. And so how do you trigger protection mode? How else do you trigger protection mode? We talked about feeling unsafe for a long time, but what does that really mean? Because this word safety is very misunderstood. Safety doesn't necessarily mean that there's no direct threat to my life right now. Safety means that I can be myself around everyone. Safety means that I can be at ease. Safety means that I don't have to worry about things or others or food. That's what it means to feel safe. And safety also means that I can feel fear and I still feel safe, and that I don't need to cope with something because that emotion of fear makes me very uncomfortable. And so you trigger your nervous system and you get stuck in protection mode when you've been feeling unsafe for a long period of time. And this could also be how you speak to yourself. If you're always berating yourself for what you did, what you didn't do, if you're always upset at yourself for what you said and what you didn't say, if you always feel like you're not enough, if every morning you look at yourself in the mirror and you say something negative about yourself, well, that triggers your nervous system into protection mode. I mean, if somebody was walking around with you all day long, calling you names and making you feel terrible about yourself, how would that make you feel? And yet that's who you're spending time with all day, that negative self-talk, who's always saying all these negative things, and that's constantly making you feel unsafe. Somebody gives you a compliment and you deflect. Somebody says something nice, and right away your mind goes to a story projecting worst case scenarios. That's protection mode. And you can also trigger protection mode if you've been in trauma, if you've experienced trauma. Even at a very young age, you've just learned certain things about the world and certain things about people. And we're going to tread very lightly as we talk about trauma, because every single person in this room is a walking side effect of the trauma that they've endured. Every single person has endured trauma to different degrees and durations. But here's the thing about trauma. Trauma isn't what happened to you. Trauma is how your body responded to it this whole time. So it's not what happened, it's how your body's responded this whole time. And again, we're talking about the nervous system. It's how your body has been in protection mode this whole time as a result of that. And this could be emotional trauma. This could be physical trauma. This could be psychological. And this could also be a form of trauma that we don't oftentimes think about, which is food scarcity. Food scarcity is trauma, whether that means it's real, like you grew up in an environment where there was no food and you really did have to go to bed hungry, or you imposed that food scarcity yourself. Or maybe somebody else did onto you because they made you feel like you had to release weight, that there was something wrong with your physical body and you were forced to actually have food scarcity. And another way that we also trigger ourselves into protection mode and lock ourselves there is through dysregulated emotions. What are dysregulated emotions? Those are emotions that you never learned how to cope with. And this, again, could have happened at a young age. It could have happened when you were in a relationship with a person who maybe was a narcissist or abused you or was gaslighting. But emotional dysregulation is essentially you not being able to sit in certain emotions, such as fear. And that's a really big one. And a lot of children up until the age of 8 experience fear and actual intense emotions as physical pain. So up until 8 years old, emotional pain feels like physical pain for children. And so if you've gone through a childhood where there was a lot of trauma and there was a lot of hardships and nobody was there to hold space, or maybe you were told, suck it up, stop crying, or crying is a sign of weakness, and you had to learn how to just smother those emotions, what you also didn't learn how to do is how to regulate them. Because I'm going to be teaching you over these 9 days about the 4 different emotions / feelings that we have and how each and every single one of them is here to give you information. And just like physical pain, right? If you burn yourself, that hurts. Just like physical pain is there to protect you. So when I put my hand on a hot stove and I feel physical pain, right away, I remove my hand. If I didn't feel the burning sensation, I would keep my hand there. And so likely, if I didn't experience physical pain, and if you didn't experience physical pain, you would maybe be missing some limbs right now because you wouldn't know if something hurt or not. You would have no idea if you were being harmed or not. Well, emotions are similar. And that's why fear, anxiety, stress, doubt, shame, worry, regret, remorse, all of these emotions are also physically felt. But unconsciously, the brain has created the pattern or the program that when I feel this, it's really bad. Something terrible is going to happen to us. Get out quickly, get some food. And so when you learn how to regulate your emotions, which is a big work that we're going to be doing together over these 9 days, you're going to start to notice a massive shift in your behavior. You're going to notice a massive shift in your cravings, in your thoughts. And so I'm going to pause here a moment and just open it up for questions. I'm going to read the comments also we're going to be, by the way, we're going to be taking all of these comments and using them as well to continue to expand on some of the information this week. Yeah, good. Ready to unlearn. Yes. All right. I love it. Thank you, Susan. Glad this is resonating with you. Megan. Yeah, that's right. Feeling that you're in that response all the time. Deborah, hypothyroidism. We can expand on that a little bit if ever you want to get on a call and talk about something that's a bit more particular to you. I'm super happy to do that. I want to, because there's so much information, I want to really stay more around the conversations of the nervous system, and tomorrow the two hormones more associated with the nervous system. All right. Megan, safety means being able to be myself around everyone. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and thank you for being vulnerable, Megan, and for just being in this space. What about being forced to eat, to clean your plate because there are starving kids in Africa? Yeah, that felt pretty traumatic to me when parents did that. And thanks for bringing that up, because yes, it is very traumatic to be forced to finish your plate and to feel guilty for or feel responsible for children in Africa that have absolutely nothing to do with your current situation. And again, this is a pattern. And this is a pattern that I see a lot of moms do also, clean up their kids' plate if they don't consume it because it's so wasteful to put it in the garbage. And so this is, again, another pattern that you'll be able to address through this work. Susan, yeah, been there through dieting and emotional eating. Okay. Thank you for being here, Susan. Being ashamed for being too skinny as a child. So eat more. Yeah, that's right. That's right. And just somebody telling you that there's something wrong with your physical body. That's right. Okay, so we're going to put up the second poll question right now. So Michelle's going to put up the second poll question. And I'm just curious how this went for you today. How did this go for you today? And thank you. And if you're writing down somewhat helpful, but not sure how to implement, yes. Thank you for sharing that. And super happy also that you're sharing that, because tomorrow we're going to be getting into some practices together. And our goal right now, especially today, was to create a lot of awareness. So just creating a lot of awareness around, okay, it's not about the food and it's not about what I'm doing. Actually, my body's perfectly healthy in protection. It's actually doing what it's supposed to do. It's actually biologically responding to protection mode in the way that it should. Now, the real question is, how do I get out of that? And so my greatest takeaway for you today is this is not your fault. If you've been struggling with weight for a long time or your health for a long time and you find yourself constantly back to the drawing board, it is not your fault. It's not because you're not doing it right. It's not because you don't know the things to do. It's not because your body's broken. It's really because you are stuck in a nervous system state that's always going to favor survival, which means it's going to favor fat storage. It's going to constantly work against you. The good news about knowing this, and the moment that you stop weighing yourself and focusing on that being the issue, and actually bring your attention to what really is, which is why you're doing the things that you're doing, things change faster than you can realize. Within 1 month, you're going to see results that you've never seen before in a very different way, in a very relaxing way, in a way where you are not restricting, where you're not feeling stressed around food, where you are having more awareness around how to regulate your emotions, because it's not food. And you know this, I don't have to tell you this. It's not food that's actually fulfilling that need that you're trying to use food for. You know that. That's why after the pint of ice cream, it's a bag of chips, and then you're back to the cookies, and then you're back, because if it did what it needed to do, you wouldn't be still chasing that thing to soothe, that's going to help soothe you, right? So it's really understanding what is that need that you're trying to fulfill. So I want to thank you so much for being here today, for sharing this beautiful lunch hour together. There will be a replay available for you. We're going to email it out to you a little bit later. And if in the meantime, you want to connect and go through something privately, I think somebody wrote about hypothyroidism here, or if you want to actually get together and create up strategies so that these 9 days can be a little bit more intentional for you, then you can do that. And we're going to add the calendar link right now in the chat if you want to get on a 30-minute strategy call to make sure that this time together is spent in a way that serves you a little bit more. Then I'm super happy to do that. Otherwise, I will see you tomorrow. We'll be back here to talk about hormones and talk about the 2 hormones that you're going to need to regulate for rapid release. Nope, it's not estrogen. And once you understand how to regulate these two hormones, everything's going to change. And that's why we're saying rapid release, because really, when you can focus on these two hormones and you start to focus on your nervous system, you do start to rapid release. So I'll see you tomorrow.